My name is Morgan Blake. I'm 28, a senior financial analyst living in Seattle. Most mornings start the same: black coffee, a quiet window, inbox already filling up before sunrise. My apartment is small, but it's mine. Clean countertops. A couch I saved for. Silence I paid for. People call me independent. What they really mean is, I stopped asking for help. Stopped expecting calls to be check-ins instead of requests. I used to think that peace meant everyone finally treating me right. Turns out, peace is what happens when I stop picking up the phone. There's no drama here. No guilt hanging in the corners. Just steam rising from a chipped mug, and the sound of my own breathing. I built this life from spreadsheets, late nights, and learning the hard way that survival sometimes means disappearing, quietly, intentionally. And for a while, it worked. I wasn't always like this. There was a time I would have dropped everything to help. I used to believe that being the dependable one meant I was loved, needed, valued. But over time, I started to see it differently. In my family, reliability was currency, and I was broke from spending it on people who never paid me back. It started small. At 21, my sister Chelsea called me crying. Her car had been repossessed, and she was going to lose her new job if she didn't get it back. She promised it was different this time. That she was serious. That she just needed someone to believe in her. My credit was spotless. I co-signed. She stopped showing up to work 3 weeks later. Missed every payment. Guess whose credit took the hit? At 23, Mom called with her voice cracking, said the mortgage was late, Dad was out of work, Chelsea had moved back in, and they were barely hanging on. I wired $2,000 that same night. No one mentioned it at Christmas. No one said thank you. I got a mug. World's best daughter. At 25, Chelsea got a DUI. First one we knew about, anyway. Dad said to keep it quiet, it would ruin the family's image. I paid for the lawyer, sealed the records. The next time she got pulled over, I said no. That was the moment things shifted. Mom didn't get angry. She got disappointed. Told me I'd never understand what it meant to worry for someone you love. Said Chelsea's life had always been harder than mine. I sat there, listening to that, thinking of every night I skipped dinner to pay off her messes. Every time I bit my tongue while they painted her as fragile and me as unfeeling. I realized something no daughter wants to admit. They didn't see me as family. They saw me as function. A safety net. A backup plan. A faucet they could turn on when something broke. And the worst part? I let them. For years, I said yes when I meant no. I offered help before they could ask. I let guilt masquerade as love. But that kind of love doesn't hold. Eventually, it empties you. Quietly. Completely. So, I stopped pouring. Dinner at my parents' house was always the same. Same table. Same casserole. Same script disguised as small talk. That Sunday, though, something felt off. Like they'd rehearsed. Mom greeted me at the door with a smile too wide, too sweet. You look so thin, sweetheart. Are you eating enough? Her voice was soft, but calculated. She only asked about my health when she was about to violate my boundaries. Dad gave me a half hug, a distracted, "Hey, kiddo," then went straight to his chair, already pouring a second glass of wine. Chelsea was already there. She didn't look at me. Just scrolled through her phone, legs tucked under her like a child caught doing something wrong. The air smelled like garlic and tension. We made it through the salad. Mom complimented the weather like it was an achievement. Dad refilled his glass. Chelsea picked at her food like it might bite her. Then it came. Mom set down her fork, folded her hands like she was in church, and gave me the same smile she used when she asked for money. Your father and I have been talking, she began. Chelsea's had a rough few months. The job didn't work out. Her lease fell through. And, we've all agreed it would be best if she moved in with you for a while. Just like that. Not a question. A presentation. I looked around the table. No one made eye contact. Not even Chelsea. Especially not Chelsea. Dad cleared his throat, like he was preparing for impact. Chelsea leaned back in her chair, already assuming the outcome. Already assuming I'd fold. They were waiting for the pushback. The quiet resistance. So they could label it selfish. Cold. Unreasonable. Instead, I smiled. If it helps Chelsea get back on her feet, I said, gently, I don't see why not. The silence was sharp. Mom blinked, visibly caught off guard. Dad let out a long exhale, like he'd dodged a bullet. Chelsea smirked. That slow, smug tilt of the lips I knew too well. She thought she'd won. They all did. What none of them asked, what none of them ever asked, was if I even lived there anymore. They assumed I did. Because I'd always been the predictable one. The one who paid the bills. Covered the gaps. Smiled through discomfort. But this time, I wasn't the same daughter they remembered. I wasn't playing that role anymore. And the apartment they just handed over like spare change? That apartment was already gone. I didn't leave the dinner angry. That surprised me. There was no yelling, no slammed doors, no final straw. Just a quiet shift. A clean break forming somewhere inside me, quietly, without ceremony. They assumed I would make room. Again. They assumed I still lived in that apartment. That I would scoot over, shift things around, erase myself enough to make Chelsea comfortable. But I had already moved out. Weeks ago. It wasn't a spontaneous decision. It had been building. Years of unspoken resentment, of covering for their chaos, of learning that boundaries only worked when I enforced them myself. I started with a realtor. Quietly. I didn't even tell my friends. We listed the condo on a Wednesday. A buyer signed by Friday. I boxed up what I needed, sold the rest. I didn't cry. I didn't second guess it. I just packed, closed the door behind me, and didn't look back. My new place was smaller. Quieter. On the other side of the city where no one thought to look. It had creaky floors and too much street noise, but it felt like mine in a way the condo never did. I furnished it slowly, nothing fancy. A second-hand couch. A bookshelf I built myself. Plants that didn't need much attention. I didn't tell my parents I'd moved. Not because I wanted to hurt them. But because I knew they'd make it about them. About how left out they felt. About how ungrateful I'd become. They never asked where I lived. Not once. Not when we spoke briefly on the phone. Not when I sent Mom a birthday card. Not when Chelsea accidentally mentioned stopping by. They didn't care where I was. They cared that I was reachable. That I was still available for emergencies, for cleanups, for backup plans. They didn't want me. They wanted access to me. So I stopped giving it. When they told me Chelsea would be moving in, I didn't argue. I just let the performance play out. I let them assume. Let them plan. Let them pack. Every text Mom sent that week read like a confirmation of a deal I never agreed to. We'll bring Chelsea's mattress Saturday morning. She's so excited to have her own space. Let me know if you need anything cleaned before she arrives. I didn't answer. Not because I was cruel. But because I no longer played roles written by other people. And the version of me they kept texting? She didn't live there anymore. Literally. Emotionally. She'd packed up. Quietly. Intentionally. And just like that. I was gone. Saturday morning came like they said it would. I was already gone, miles away, sipping a coffee I didn't rush through, standing in the sun longer than I needed to. I walked through a farmer's market without buying anything. Let the breeze hit my face without checking the time. My phone buzzed once. Then again. Then again. Voicemail. Missed call. Another. I didn't pick up. Not until the fourth one. It was Mom. But not her soft voice. This was the brittle one. The voice she used when something didn't go her way. There's someone here, she snapped. Some man. He says he lives in the condo. Says you don't live here anymore. I let the silence stretch. Let her feel it. You didn't tell us, she hissed. You never said a word. No, I said evenly. I didn't. Rustling in the background. Bags shifting. Dad's voice rising low and irritated. Chelsea whining in a tone I hadn't heard since high school. What is this? Mom demanded. I sold the condo, I said simply. Weeks ago. You what? I moved out. Quietly. You didn't think we should know? She asked, breathless. No one asked. I imagined them standing on that porch, arms full of boxes, staring at a door that wouldn't open. They hadn't just misjudged me. They'd miscalculated everything, how far I'd go to reclaim my space. How completely I'd removed myself from the life they kept dragging me into. Then came Dad's voice, sharp, cutting. You said she could move in. I kept my voice calm. I said, if it helps Chelsea get back on her feet, I don't see why not. I never said where. Silence. Then Chelsea's voice, low and shaky. So what now? We're just supposed to figure it out? She sounded younger than I remembered. Not angry, just lost. For a brief second, I almost softened. Almost. But I didn't. Because they weren't surprised that they didn't know. They were surprised that I hadn't bent to make it easier. They were shocked by the boundary, not the act. What they didn't understand is I didn't sell the condo out of spite. I didn't move out to make a statement. I did it because I needed a home where I didn't feel watched, controlled, or claimed. I needed a door that belonged to me. That I could close without guilt. And most of all, I needed them to learn. Just because I'd always made room, doesn't mean there would always be space. They thought that was the end of it. They were wrong. Because by sunset, they were standing at the wrong door again. Only this time, it wasn't by accident. They'd found me. The knock came just after sunset. 3 short, clipped hits. The kind that tries to sound polite but is laced with frustration. I didn't need to check. I already knew. Still, I looked through the peephole. There they were, Mom, Dad, Chelsea. Trunk full of boxes parked at the curb like it was moving day. I opened the door halfway. You found me, I said flatly. Mom's lipstick was faded. Her eyes wide, wild. We tried calling, she said, breath catching. We didn't think you'd actually be here. It's my apartment, I replied. Dad's tone snapped. You said she could move in. I said, if it helps Chelsea, I don't see why not. That was at the old place. I don't live there anymore. Chelsea stepped forward, arms crossed. This is petty, Morgan. You always act like you're so above everyone, but this? This is cruel. I tilted my head. You packed up your life and drove across town to move into someone's apartment that you never confirmed still existed. That's not cruelty, Chelsea. That's entitlement. She flushed, but said nothing. Dad stepped between us. His voice dropped into that low, warning register I remembered too well. Enough. We've put up with a lot from you, Morgan. You owe this to your sister. There it was. The word they never said, but always meant. Oh. Not love. Not respect. Debt. I stepped back and picked up my phone. What are you doing? Mom asked. I didn't answer. I dialed. 911, what's your emergency? My family is outside my apartment. They weren't invited. They're refusing to leave. I'd like to report trespassing. Chelsea's mouth dropped open. Frank cursed under his breath. Mom looked like I'd slapped her. You're calling the police on your own family, she whispered. I asked you to leave. You didn't. The dispatcher asked for my address. I gave it. Calm. Steady. This is going to ruin everything, Chelsea snapped. Do you know what people will think of you? Yes, I said. They'll say I finally closed the door. And this time, I meant it. The next morning, I woke up to 12 missed calls. 5 from Mom. 2 from Dad. The rest from numbers I didn't recognize, probably cousins I hadn't spoken to since middle school. Then came the texts. How could you do this to your own sister? Your mother's heartbroken. Chelsea sleeping in her car. Is that what you wanted? I didn't reply. I just scrolled. Eventually, I found it, a public Facebook post from my mother. 3 paragraphs. Multiple crying emojis. And a photo of Chelsea as a toddler in a tutu. We raised both our daughters to love one another. But one of them has forgotten what that means. We're devastated. Morgan, so successful, so fortunate, turned her back on us in our time of need. Chelsea didn't deserve this. None of us did. Hundreds of likes. Dozens of comments. People who knew nothing about me suddenly had opinions. Ungrateful. Cold-hearted. She'll regret this one day. It wasn't new. Just louder. I stared at the screen for a long time. Not hurt. Not angry. Just tired. Then I opened my photo archive. I posted a single thread. No hashtags. No caption. Screenshot number 1. The $2,000 wire transfer I sent when they were months behind on their mortgage. Screenshot number 2. My name on the co-signed car loan for Chelsea, followed by the collections notice after she defaulted. Screenshot number 3. A photo of the invoice from the lawyer who handled her first DUI. Screenshot number 4. The sale confirmation of my condo, signed, notarized, dated 3 weeks before the big move. Screenshot number 5. A saved message from Chelsea, sent 2 years ago. You're such a boring robot. No wonder no one wants to live with you. And at the bottom of it all, one line. I didn't abandon my family. I just stopped volunteering for emotional debt. I turned off my phone. Not out of fear. But because I didn't need to hear applause either. I'd said what needed saying. And finally, I'd said it to the right people. Later that afternoon, my doorbell didn't ring. No knocks. No noise. Just stillness. I made tea. Chamomile. Not for sleep. Just the ritual of it. Steam rose from the mug like forgiveness I hadn't asked for. I didn't read the follow-up messages. Didn't open Mom's "Can we talk?" Didn't respond to Chelsea's "This isn't over." Because it was. It had been over the first time I said yes when I meant no. The first time I paid for peace that didn't include me. They could keep rewriting the story. Cast me as the villain, the cold one, the ungrateful daughter. Let them. I wasn't here to be loved anymore. I was here to finally be honest. That night, I made chamomile tea. Not for sleep, I didn't need help sleeping anymore. Just for the ritual. I stood on the balcony, the city humming below. Someone walked by with a dog in a jacket too big for spring. A neighbor waved. I waved back. Inside, the apartment was quiet. No framed photos. No history on the walls. Just space. I didn't feel triumphant. Or bitter. I just felt done. I didn't close the door out of anger. I closed it because I finally understood. Not every knock deserves to be answered.